Hello, Jack.
Yeah, too much magic in the air. We've got gremlins in the system, I think,
Oh,
Michael.
yeah. Well, you see, you're coming to the headquarters. You can see all my magical diagrams in behind me. In the room. So yeah, it's absolutely swarming spirits in here. If you believe in,
I've been in that house. I know exactly what that place feels like. It's full of it.
Good.
You live on a lake, don't you? Right on the lake.
I live on one of the what is called land lakes. They're in fact ponds because they were dug by navvies. But yeah, I live on the lakes which are used for supplying water to Lowestoft. Yep. So that's all. I've got a bit of the Norfolk Broads on one side. I've got a big area of woods on the other, and a little bit of agricultural land. So I've got all three of them together really. Um, I say I live in Yarmouth, and it's perfectly true. I just within the border between Yarmouth and Lowestoft. So um, there's there's the county boundary actually goes right in front of my window. So I'm halfway in Norfolk, halfway in Suffolk. Anyway, that's me. Yes, good.
The border guard.
Well, yeah, that could happen.
Yeah. So this sounds like an extremely good environment for a practicing pagan to be living in, close to nature, woods, lakes, and this sort of thing. Do you, I assume you involve aspects of this environment in part or in whole in what you do? Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I do. For many years now, I've been interested in all aspects of magic, really. But round about the mid 1990s, I got interested in paganism and the way that it works, and so I've been really linked with the pagans in Yarmouth and also the pagans in Norwich. But yes, I mean, in practice, what it actually means is that I don't block off my garden, which means that the deer and foxes and badgers and everything else come in. I can hear them yelling at night, and they're there. It doesn't bother me anymore. But yes, I try and work together with the Sunlight Estate, which is on one hand, and the Lone Lakes, which are on the other. And so I try to do everything in harmony with that. In reality, of course, in reality. So I see the deer in the early morning, and I can see other things. And now, of course, the Sunlight Estate are going to be deliberately wilding their estate, so they're going to introduce things like links and so on, which is great. And I am all support of that. Yeah. So to a certain extent, it is involved, but it what I actually do in reality, if you like, is more in line with the magic, hermetic magic, um, or wizardry, if you want to be calling it that. Yeah. So that is more my principal interest. So I'll let the nature be outside, and inside, well, it's just really me doing my own thing very much.
And this is a religion far, far older than any of the others, correct?
That is correct. The pagan religions of the British Isles, you can take them back to really the arrival of humans in the British Isles. Then they went through various forms, like for instance in the time when Stonehenge was built, and then we've got Roman Norwich, which of course was completely pagan. We got the early Saxon period, which was completely pagan. So yes, these pagan religions are very, very ancient, and they they've been going on for many centuries. Yeah.
And you say religions plural. Obviously, there's more than one form
Yeah.
of paganism. Do you yourself follow a particular religion or sort of variation of that?
Well, what I do is that there are 8 seasonal festivals in the year, and up till this year, I tended to celebrate those. They happen about every month and a half and go throughout the year. And so I celebrated those, and that's, if you like, the public side of my paganism. Um, then it's a question of, well, do I do other things on my own? And the answer is yes, but that isn't public paganism, if you like. That's my own private interest. So I'm sort of a little bit split between the two, but um, for the purposes of the outside world, really, modern paganism is what I do, and I. It also helps in something like interfaith, which is something I get involved in, and it's not too complicated to people to explain. You can, by just having one thing, uh, you can explain easier, if you like. And I think people tend to understand this idea of having 8 pagan festivals a year and going along to and doing those and having a feast and all the rest of it. That's nice and easily explicable. Yeah.
Mm. And you work with a group, I seem to recall, a small one, I think.
I have. I was part of a coven which it used to meet on Mousehold Heath, as a matter of fact. But then the two leaders of this coven uh, went down to the south of England as a result, actually, of a family tragedy, really. But anyway, they went down to the south of England. I then carried on with another group, which is based in Mid Norfolk. I shan't go into any more details on that, but it's based in Mid Norfolk, and that is tending to work more with the Anglo-Saxon deities. So I've done both of those, the Wicca or pagan witchcraft, and working with the Anglo-Saxon deities as well.
So
And yeah,
this would involve the sort of Norse gods
yeah,
and some degree of runecraft. Perhaps you could explain a little bit about that.
yes. Well, the deities, if you like, are um, very similar to the ones in the English week. So you have Tuesday, which is named after Tu, who's a war god. When Woden Wednesday, which is named after Woden. Thursday, which is named after Thor. Friday, which is named after Freya or Fry. And then there are two which are non-Germanic, if you like. There's Saturn, which is the old Roman god. They didn't really have an equivalent of that, and then Sunday and Monday as well. Which, but so yeah, we work with those. We also work with the runes as well as a divinatory system. So you have a bag of runes and you select one out, and or even two or three out, and all of those have a meaning. That they're similar to tarot cards, but not tarot cards, if you see what I mean. They're a means of divination, really. So
And
yeah,
a lot of modern day words are derived from runes, aren't they?
oh yes, yes. Well, that's
Ing.
ing, 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 which is probably a big deity in Norfolk. Of course, it means a people or so on. And we've got place names as well in Norfolk. We've got Crichton Lake, which is probably named after Friar, and we have Grimston as well. That's another one. Grim is a name of Odin, you know, so or Woden, and it means the masked one, which means that probably at that time that the representative of Odin was wearing a mask, you know. So there are things like that. And about a quarter of present day English words actually came over the Anglo-Saxons and were Anglo-Saxon words, you know. And then, of course, when the William the Conqueror invaded, then they started using French words as well, so that was added to English. But basically, the words, the Anglo-Saxon words, are there in the language, and they're what we speak. Yeah.
And the vast majority of people, you know, living in Norfolk, Suffolk, Anglia, have no idea just exactly how much of a Norse stronghold this was, do they? I mean, this was almost entirely the province of what many people would call the Vikings or Northmen. We spoke entirely their language. We worshipped entirely their gods, didn't we?
Mm. I think that's absolutely true, and I think that you can with confidence you can say that there were dialects all over England of the way that English is spoken, but modern English derives more than anything from the dialect of East Anglia, which at that time was Norfolk and Suffolk, and that led into modern English that we speak today. And so this is it's even sometimes people have said that the people who lived in this area were speaking it before the Romans left, and that theirs was a dialect of Anglo-Saxon. But be that as it may, modern English, I think, comes from here, this part of the world. Yeah.
I think they hired them. The Romans hired a few Saxons and a few Northmen, German-speaking peoples, when they were getting a little low on money and a little low on manpower as a form of cheap European labour.
Well, yes, yes. I mean, it was going on for a long time before and after the Romans. In fact, the when the Romans went away, the locals said, "Please send the Romans back, please." But that didn't happen, unfortunately. That was in 409. But yeah, it's known that the forts of the Saxon shore would probably have had these. Um, would have probably had the Anglo-Saxons attached, and so we're talking in this region at least. You're talking about Branodunum, modern day Brancaster. You're talking about Borough Castle, probably known as Gariononum, and we're talking about a fort which is gone in that direction, which was near modern Felixstowe. But yes, I mean, in all of those places, the Romans will have hired the people from North Germany. So, of course, when the Romans cleared off, I mean, it's no surprise that they carried on being Anglo-Saxons. You know, though it certainly, when you look at archaeological investigations, it's not a question of places having been burnt down and so on. That Anglo-Saxon part just continued as far as we can see. Yeah.
And they had a very specific pantheon of gods. Each one of those gods would have been associated with a different area of life. Now, cutting to the chase, as it were,
Yes.
you're a man. I mean, I've known you for a very long time. I
Yes,
mean, at
indeed.
least
Yes,
20
yes,
years, and I know you're not afraid to invoke one of these deities when
yes.
you feel the need. Could you give us any? Well, I don't have to go into too much detail, but could you give us any examples of who you have invoked and some idea as to why you might have done so?
Well, that's an interesting one, of course. One which quite a few people know is that somebody who was in Norwich at the time, he wanted to get into the art school, which is now the university, the art university. And he said, "Well, could I help him?" I said, "I will have a go." And so we actually went out. This was long before it was purchased by the trust. We went out to the place Venturati Norum, Caister by Norwich, did an evocation there of Hecate, because Hecate was of interest to him. And I said, that's it. And so he was happy, went back, and he actually got into the art school. Fantastic. But, of course, the trouble was that he wasn't entirely in control of himself. And the story he put out was, anyway, was that he got into a fight with somebody. And yes, he got into a fight. And so, of course, not surprisingly, they chucked him out of the art school. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that was a story which he told me at the time. So, yes, I got him into the art school, but he got himself out, if that's the right way of putting it.
This is a fairly classic example of how magic works, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
a
indeed.
tide going out and coming back in.
Yeah,
You can push something that appears to go over the winning line,
yeah.
but nature has a way of resetting the balance to how it wanted things to be in the first place, doesn't it?
Yes, that's absolutely right. And um, this particular individual, he still carried on doing art stuff, and I've in fact got one of his paintings, but which is a pretty good painting, you know. So there's no hard feelings on my part. But yes, you can you put your maximum into it. The person that you're doing it for, they've got to behave sensibly, and getting into a fight with a fellow student isn't behaving sensibly, I'm afraid,
No,
you know.
it's not going to
Yeah.
keep you in art school for very long either, is it?
Well, no, no. I mean, maybe he wasn't doing his work properly. You don't know. That was the
No.
story he told me.
Yeah.
But